you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. If you could do me a quick favor, see that little subscribe button at the bottom of your screen? Go ahead, click that subscribe button. Really does help our channel grow, our audience grow, and I really do appreciate it more than you know. So click that subscribe button. Appreciate your support. Now, here's the video that you came here for. One last result that I do got to get to for a couple reasons. It's Auburn, Arkansas. We got to talk a little bit about it because producer Matt, the producer of this show, is an Auburn grad. So he might cut my mic if we don't at least reference Auburn's win. But also, listen, I'm the big pig invasion guy. So every time that something goes wrong with Arkansas, I hear it, I get criticized, I whatever. And I can honestly say I don't think that I ever saw what was coming on Saturday as Arkansas loses at home to Auburn. This was the worst loss in Bud Walton Arena history. And I'm obviously a guy that just went to my first game at Bud Walton a few weeks ago. 83-51, a home loss for Arkansas. And I've had a lot of people ask me, a lot of people tweet me. I figured it was at least worth addressing. Is Arkansas what is wrong with Arkansas, and are they going to get fixed this year? So let's dive in. First off, let me say this. Credit to Auburn. Auburn's a really good team, and that's something I don't want to be lost in all of this. Auburn is a very good basketball team, okay? They're 12-2 this year. Their only losses, they lost to Baylor on the second night of the season, and then they played a weird road game at Appalachian State. And those are the only two losses. They destroyed Indiana on a neutral. They destroyed USC at home. They just finally got into the top 25. It's crazy. I remember watching them against USC and saying, how are they not in the top 25? They play about 10 or 11 guys. They can all score, size, length, athleticism. Janai Broome down low. Aiden Holloway at point guard is really good. Denver Jones on the way. They have a lot of really good players. And by the way, a lot of older players. Dylan Cardwell forward has been there forever. Katie Johnson has been there forever. Those are guys that were part of SEC championship teams 2 years ago when they had Walker Kessler and Jabari Smith. Still, though, as good as Auburn is, the story is Arkansas. And there's really nothing to say about Arkansas that isn't really obvious other than that, by now, I think we all thought this thing would get figured out. Instead, Arkansas is now 9-5. They took a bad loss early in the year to UNC Greensboro. And then really outside of the home win at Duke, home win against Duke, they really don't have much of a resume to speak of. I joked about it on Twitter. I said, Arkansas hasn't been the same since Torres left town because I go there, they take care of Duke. It's a great victory. And then it has all been downhill since then. And so everybody wants to know what's wrong, what's going on, what's this, what's that. It's tough to really diagnose. And listen, I'm not speaking out of school here. Coach Muss talked about it after the game. He said, look, he basically listed 8 different things. He's like, we don't rebound. We don't defend. We don't defend the three. We don't block shots. We don't score. We don't pass. We don't he just listed about 9 things. He's like, we would get F's in all of them. And I think the exact quote was, I could go around to each of you and you could tell me what our biggest problem is right now. And each one of you in the media would have a different answer and you'd all be right. So obviously there's some frustration in the program. I think a couple things stand out to me. One, I think they're trying to, first of all, there's something, it appears as though, let me start by saying this. I think the biggest issue is they're still trying to figure out rotations. And I know everybody's sort of still figuring it out this time of year, but Arkansas, listen, a lot like last year, there's good luck and there's bad luck. Last year, there was just bad luck. Trevin Brazile gets hurt. You finally start figuring it out without Nick Smith. Then he comes back. Then you're trying to figure it out with Nick Smith. And it just never really clicked. This year, I think they're starting to figure it out. Then Keon Menafield gets eligible. Keon Menafield drops 30 a week ago, so you want to feature him. And so I do think there's still kind of that figuring it out phase. You've played, Tremont Mark has been in and out of the lineup. Trevin Brazile was banged up, but he played. So I still think you look at this roster, who fits, who plays well together, who doesn't, who this, who that. But the other thing that stands out, just the lack of effort defensively. And this is something, again, I've been watching Coach Muss teams for years. And I said this in the Greensboro game. I said, Coach Muss is going to make these guys play defense or they're not going to play. And for whatever reason, it has not clicked. It has not worked. I don't have the answers, but the stats are kind of jarring, right? Look at this defense right now, 140th nationally in field goal percentage defense, 220th nationally in three-point percentage defense. I mean, 220th nationally is not going to get the job done. And so when I look at this team, that's what stands out is one, trying to figure out offensively. Listen, offense is a rhythm and flow thing. I'm not an X's and O's guy. I don't claim to be an expert, whatever. But you have to figure out what pieces fit together, which don't, what's this, what that, whatever. But two, defense is just an effort thing. And right now, I don't think the effort is there. And I don't think it's out of school to say that because Coach Muss addressed it at the podium on Saturday night. And so it's frustrating. It's disappointing. This was a team, listen, I had them in the preseason top 10. I know many people, I saw Trilly Donovan, that infamous Twitter account, had them in the Final Four in the preseason. I liked them. I didn't pick them to go to the Final Four, but I just can't believe it. I think the only saving grace, and I know it's not what an Arkansas fan wants to hear right now, Coach Muss generally figures it out. It's going to take some time. He's going to settle on his 7, 8 guys, and we'll figure out who they are. I'm not here to say who's right and who's wrong and who fits and who doesn't. I think he will figure that out eventually, but it is frustrating right now. And again, this year is a little bit different than even last year, right? Last year, a lot of people said, oh, they finished whatever it was, 8th in the SEC. It's like, yeah, but they had injuries all year. This year, Mark's out, then he's back. Menafield gets eligible, but it's an interesting scenario. Good thing for Arkansas, the schedule really isn't brutal. By the way, maybe Auburn's just a little bit better than we thought, but this league is unforgiving, man. This league is tough. Like again, you watch Florida the other day against Kentucky. That's a good team. You watch, Vandy gave Alabama fits. Ole Miss was ranked up until this week. So there's a lot of good teams in this league. You got to get it right. Good news is you got at Florida, that's a winnable game, or at Georgia, a winnable game. Then at Florida, that'll be a tough one. Texas A&M at home. Texas A&M does not look very good right now. So you kind of hit a little bit of a soft spot in the schedule. Late in the year, you do have Tennessee. You do have Tennessee. You do have Bama. You do have 2 games with Kentucky starting the last week of January. So still a little bit of time to figure it out. But there's no doubt that it's at least a little bit disappointing.